Hello and welcome to this video on performing quadratic regression on the TI-84 Plus calculator. If you have a different version of a Texas Instruments graphing calculator, this should still work in a lot of the same ways and you should be able to follow all these same steps. So the first thing that I want to do is turn what is known on these calculators as diagnostics. I wanted to turn that on so that we have all the features active in our quadratic regression that we're about to do. So the easiest way to do that is if you hit second and then the 0 button, you'll see the catalog pop up. So we're looking for diagnostics. So you find the green D right here. And if we push that, we'll scroll down to the D's, and then we just scroll down from there to diagnostic on right here, and then we push enter twice, and we have turned that on. Now we can continue from here. So our first step would be to push the stat button and then the enter button to open our edit menu. So we have list 1 or L1 and then list 2, L2. If you don't see L1 and L2, I recommend you reset your calculator, and that will put in these lists if someone before you or if you have accidentally deleted it. So to enter numbers in, we're basically just going to enter 1, 2, and 3 into L1. And then in L2, we just got to match up our numbers with what we have. So we're going to enter in 39 for 1. We're going to enter in 52 for 2. And we're going to enter in 54 for 3. And these are basically just 3 made-up points. And think of them as points is a good idea. 1, 39, 2, 52, 3, 54 is a good way of thinking about it. Now that we have these entered on to our calculator, we want to be able to see them on our actual graph on the calculator. So what we need to do that is we need to turn our stat plot on. So we would push the second button and then y equals, and we're in our stat plots menu now. So we're going to hit enter on plot 1 and then hit enter again to turn it on. So we want, if you look at the next menu type, there's just different graphs that you can do on the calculator. So we want to use a scatter plot for this. So that's why our scatter plot is being highlighted. Our X list we have is L1. If it's not there, you just push second and then 1 for L1, and then second 2 for L2. And then the mark, you can pick whatever your favorite is. We're just going to keep it as a little square because that's the one that's already there, and that is going to work out fine. Next, we want to make sure we are going to see all of our points on our graph. So if we hit the window button, we're going to change our X min and max to fit all of our points. So we're going to do 0 to 10 for X max, and Y min is going to be 0. Y max, we need to fit our biggest point. So we'll go up to 60 to make sure we can see everything, and hit enter. Now that we have our window set up, we can push the graph button and we can see all 3 of our points plotted on our calculator. If you click the trace button, you would be able to see our first point, 1, 39 listed at the bottom, and then we can see our points all there that we are looking for. Now that we've done that, we want to actually be doing quadratic regression. So in order to do that, we need to go back to our stat menu. So now we hit stat, and instead of going into edit, we're going to go over to the right one, and then we're going to scroll down to quadrac. That stands for quadratic regression. Quadratic regression is basically going to find us a parabola and a function that would fit all of our points the best. This is similar to finding a line of best fit, which is what linear regression does. Now we're just finding a parabola or a curve of best fit for the points that we have started with at the beginning. And we're going to hit enter. So we come up our quadratic regression menu. So we have L1 and L2 as X and Y from earlier. That's going to be fine. We're going to ignore frequency, our FREQ list. And the store regression equation idea right here is something you can do. It's not necessary. You can kind of just go down to calculate, hit enter, and then write down the equation that you get, and then you can put that into y equals to graph it. But if you wanted to store it without having to write it down, it's very easy. You just push the VARS button, which stands for variables, go over to the right one, hit enter on function, and then we're just going to choose y1, the very first one we have. So once it does the quadratic regression, we will have it stored automatically for us in y1 on our calculator. Now all there's left to do is push enter, and we have been given our quadratic regression equation. So our equation, if you want to read this correctly, would end up as negative 5.5 x squared plus 29.5 x plus 15. And we see beneath that r squared is basically a statistical measure for how good your curve of best fit is. How well does it match the points that you have in front of you? And so if you were doing this without doing the store equation thing we talked about a moment ago, you would just write down that equation that I just mentioned using A, B, and C that are in front of us. And then you would go to y equals. So we're going to go into y equals to check out our equation. It's a little bit different than what I said because it's not quite as rounded as it was in our prior menu. So now all we have to do is hit graph, and we've seen our equation graphed. So something that we could do with this graph is outside of these points, we might want to know, like, what are the values if this pattern would continue as x keeps on increasing. So one way you could do that is by using the value feature. So if we hit second trace, these are our calculate menu for our graphs. So we're going to choose value right here. So if I hit enter on value, I can pick any x I want and see what it would end up being. So let's say I wanted to pick 6 past our data. So that would put me at -6, which would be below our x-axis. You can also pick things between our points. So like I could have picked 1.5. And that would put me right here at 46.8. And so that is kind of generally how that works. Now, sometimes you will have more than 3 points, and we could go into our stat menu to add points again. So if I wanted to go back in here, I could add in 6 and then have that be related to 42. And that's going to change our parabola. So if we wanted to go into our stat menu and calc, scroll down to quadratic regression, we now have L1 and L2. Well, we're going to store this using the same thing as before into Y2 and compare our two equations. So we're going to hit vars, go over to the right one, hit enter, and then enter for Y1. Oh no, we wanted to do Y2. So let's go back into that real quick. So now we have Y2. And if we go down to calculate, so now our R squared value is 0.96. So it's not quite as good at fitting all 4 of these points as it did fitting the 3 we started with. And now if we go into y equals, we can see now we have 2 different equations, and they're definitely different just by even looking at the first numbers. And we have our first equation and then our second equation. And you can see that they are definitely different parabolas, and we're able to use our calculator to get a curve of best fit for all 4 of our points instead of just the 3 that we started with. And that is all that you need to know in order to perform quadratic regression or to find a curve of best fit for a table of points or a list of points on your TI-84 Plus calculator. Thank you for watching.